Despite a big increase in the amount of houses for sale in Florida, home sales still decreased compared to the previous year. In other words, even though inventory is at its highest levels in nearly 6 years, October home sales fell to the lowest levels for the month since at least October of 2016. In today's video, I'm going to share what's happening right now in the Florida housing market so you guys can be more informed. And if you guys want to learn more about the housing market in the United States and certain markets, of course, as well, then please subscribe to this channel. I appreciate you guys so much. With that said, I have a lot to share in today's video. I'm going to share trends regarding sales, inventory levels, home prices, and price reductions, especially compared to pre-COVID levels, going all the way back until January of 2016. With that said, let's begin today's video. This video, by the way, is only looking at single family houses, excluding condos. For Florida, this is from the Florida Realtors Association. So for the month of October, there was just over, or I should say just under 19,000 closed home sales. That was a decrease of 5.6% compared to October of 2023. Something you guys should be aware of is that closed home sales have seasonal cycles. So in other words, it's more accurate to compare sales figures this October compared to the same month in years past. Therefore, at just under 19,000 closed home sales, that's the fewest number of sales for the month since at least October of 2016. In addition, sales have decreased compared to the previous year in 5 out of the past 6 months, going all the way back until May of 2024, despite the small increase we saw in July, up by 5.2%. As a note right there, because October's closed home sales are based on mostly when home buyers got their offer accepted in August and September, the big decline in sales this October were not, in my opinion, significantly decreased or significantly impacted by the 2 hurricanes that hit Florida in late September. That was from Hurricane Helene, and early October from Hurricane Milton. In contrast, pending home sales, a measure of contracts being signed between buyers and sellers, and new listings, a measure of people listing their house for a sale, are more impacted for the month of October by these hurricanes. Let's also discuss the amount of cash sales. These are people buying houses using all cash, not using a loan. That decreased by 20% year over year this October, and also decreased by nearly 21% in September. So 2 consecutive months in which cash sales decreased by about 20%. Now here's my take on this. In general, cash sales normally increase when mortgage rates spike or increase because borrowing money is more expensive, so people who do have cash are more inclined to use cash to buy houses rather than taking on a 7 to 8% loan. This is what we saw back in October of 2023 when rates spiked to about 7.6%. And because of that, cash sales increased by 3.5% year over year. Fast forward to this year, mortgage rates were quite a bit lower than October of 2023 when the average 30-year fixed rate, according to Freddie Mac, again was at 7.6%. But in October of this year, it fell to 6.4%. Therefore, the significant decrease of cash sales this October could be attributed to a lower rate environment as buyers are less inclined to use cash when interest rates are lower. Same goes for the share of cash sales as well. And that is this right here. Approximately 26.2% of all sales were from a cash buyer. So approximately 1 every 4 transactions this month came from a cash buyer. That was a decrease of 15.5% year over year, whereas back in October, compared to October of 2022, it increased by 9.2%. Because again, back then, rates were much higher than compared to this October. All right, let's change gears slightly here and talk about the median sale price for Florida. Of course, every market's different. I should have said this earlier on as well. I'm going to share how each of the metros fare regarding sales and prices as well towards the end of this video. So anyways, for the state as a whole, according to Florida Realtors, the median sale price was $415,000, a small gain up by 1.2%. That is an improvement compared to 2 months ago. Back in October, it decreased by 0.8%. That was the first time in over a decade, by the way, in which their median sale price fell compared to the previous year. Now, going back to this October, a gain of 1.2% is a very low amount of appreciation because it's more normal to see prices increase in the range of 3 to 5% and not 1.2%. However, when you really take a step back, I had to look back at their reports from years past. Over the past 5 years, the growth rate has been quite remarkable or eye-opening to say the least. In October of 2020, the median sale price was only $305,000. That represents a gain of 36%. Also, back in 2016, it was only around $225,000. Therefore, the median sale price in Florida has increased a staggering 84% over the past 8 years. Therefore, if you guys bought a house in Florida 8 years ago or so, obviously you're not going to complain about a 1.2% gain in prices year over year. Now, speaking of that, let's look at the average sale price to original list price received. So in other words, this October, it was at 95.7%. This means on average, out of all the houses that did sell in October, they sold for 4.3 percentage points less than the seller's original asking price. Let me give you guys an example. Let's say the asking price is $400,000. On average, they sold their houses for $383,000, which is a decrease of 4.3 percentage points. Also at 95.7%, this is actually the lowest sold for any month since February of 2023. In other words, nearly a 2-year low. Let's also discuss how fast or how slow houses are selling in the state, because it's taking around 45 days to sell a house. This is a time frame when the homeowner lists their house for sale until they accept an offer from home buyer. That's at 45 days this October. That's an increase of 55.2%. However, I look back at their previous reports. At 45 days, obviously this is impacted by seasonal trends. It takes longer to sell houses during the winter months and of course, faster during the spring home buying season, right? So it's more beneficial or accurate to compare days in the market for the same month looking back at previous years. So therefore, looking for the month of October, this is actually the longest time to sell a house for the month since at least October of 2017. Also, just for fun, looking at this graph below, back in October of 2021, days in the market was just over 10 days. This means that it's taking about 4 times longer to sell a house compared to the craziness of 2021. Let's also have a look at new pending sales, which is the number of listed properties that went under contract with a home buyer for the month. That fell by 7.8%. Something I want to talk about as well is that obviously we had these big hurricanes that hit in late September and early October, which impacted new listings and pending sales for October, right? However, though, look at the trend, because new pending home sales have decreased compared to the previous year in 5 out of the past 6 months. In other words, this big decline of 7.8% year over year obviously could be impacted by hurricanes, but obviously we've been seeing big decreases or at least declines of pending sales for quite some time before the hurricane season hit Florida. In regards to new listings, a measure of people listing their house for sale, that fell by 10.3%, which obviously probably was impacted by these hurricanes as well. So we'll have to see if this trend continues in November and December. And of course, I'll definitely keep you posted with the latest developments on that. Now, here's something that you guys should definitely be aware of is that active listings have been absolutely exploding. There's 97,832 single-family houses for sale as of the end of October. That was a gain of 31% compared to October of 2023. This gain of 31% is not as high compared to previous months because we saw gains in the range of 39 to about 55% for quite some time, ever since really the spring home buying season this year. In my personal opinion, the reason why we only saw a gain of 31% this month compared to the larger gains we saw before that is due to a lack of new supply that hit the market in October. In other words, that decrease we talked about down by 10% year over year regarding the measure of new listings. The best way to kind of describe this is my bathtub analogy. The water going into the bathtub is new listings. The water level is active listings or the amount of houses for sale. And of course, a drain is closed home sales. If we have an environment like we saw back in October where new supply going into the bathtub or water going to the bathtub was at relatively low levels, basically a trickle going into the bathtub, obviously we're going to see smaller growth of the water level or active listings or house inventory. In contrast, of course, if water was flowing into the bathtub big time, that obviously would increase the water level greatly, causing, of course, house inventory to rise greatly as well. Having said that, at just under 98,000 houses for sale, this is still very, very high. The highest level since early 2019, in fact. On top of that, it's also the highest for the month, which of course is October, since at least, keywords at least, October of 2016, as far back as I can see the Florida Realtors data. In addition, look at October of 2021. Back then, there was only around 39,000 houses for sale. Obviously, right now, there's nearly 98,000. This means that house inventory has increased by a whopping 151% since October of 2021. Also, check this out. The month supply for single-family houses in the state is at 4.7 months. That's an increase of 34.3 months, or 34.3%. Something to note here is that the single-family housing market in Florida is not as bad as a condo market. So for example, the month supply in Florida in October for condos is at 7.7 months, an increase of 67% year over year. 4.7 months though for single family houses is still very, very high as well though. That's the highest level for any month going back to at least January of 2016. So at 4.7 months is at least a 9-year high. Something I found to be really interesting as well is that we're seeing a decrease of closed home sales virtually for all price tiers. So here's a look at the price tiers in blue. Every single one of these price tiers fell compared to 1 year ago. These are closed home sales for these price segments. In fact, the biggest decline was in the range of $250,000 to just less than $300,000. Now, what I found to be really interesting here is that even though all these price tiers fell compared to 1 year ago regarding sales, inventory is up by double digits for all these price tiers. So take a look at this. Inventory grew by at least 12% year over year, even though sales fell for each of these price segments. In fact, the biggest gain is in the range again of $250,000 to $300,000, an increase of 51.3%. But despite that, going back to sales here, sales decreased by 10.1%. Even though there's a glut of supply there, sales still decreased by 10.1%. All right, let's talk about foreclosures, right? Because people think that foreclosures are surging. In fact, they're not though. The data does not support that. Maybe things will change, but as of right now, we're seeing a relatively low level of transactions that are distressed. In other words, a foreclosure or a short sale. In this October, it represented less than 1% of all transactions. So there was 18,453 traditional or regular sales, only 143 were foreclosures, and only 21 were short sales. In other words, distressed home sales are relatively non-existent in Florida so far. All right, let's also talk about the biggest metros in Florida because, of course, there's some very big differences. So the Florida Realtors tracks approximately 23 metros in the state, and based on closed home sales compared to 1 year ago, closed sales fell in 15 of these 23 metros. In contrast, looking at the median sale price, home prices are either flat or an increase compared to the previous year in 13 of the 23 metros that the Florida Realtors tracks. So let's have a look at the biggest metros that had at least 1,000 transactions. That's Jacksonville metro area. Sales increased by 1.9%. And of course, the median sale price was at $404,500, an increase of 4.4%. In the Miami, Florida area, sales decreased by 1.9%, but prices are up by 5.6%. Obviously, quite a bit more expensive than Jacksonville at $635,000. In Orlando, sales decreased by 3.7%. And the median sale price fell 1.1%. And lastly, in the Tampa, Florida area, sales tanked down by 9.4%, and prices based on the median sale price decreased by 1.3%. Lastly, let's have a look at the share of price drops in Florida. It's at 41%. This is actually a little bit lower than 1 year ago at 43%. This is according to altusresearch.com, by the way. Also at 41%. This is lower than the same time frame in 2022. At that time, it was at 46%, but 41% right now is obviously much higher than 2021 at 25% and 26% in 2020. However, it's still higher than pre-COVID levels. Back in December 20th, the weekend, and then 2019, it was only at 34%. With that said, if you guys got any value out of today's video, then please hit the like button. I greatly appreciate that. Also, consider subscribing as well. Also, if you guys want a real estate agent referral, whether you want to buy or sell a house in Florida or anywhere across the United States, then please check out my website, which is realestateteamfinder.com. Hope you guys have an awesome day. Thank you so much for watching today's video, and we'll see you in the next one.